Hi guys, I'm Shmee. Hello, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to a very cold Shmuseum. It is freezing outside, -degrees, but I want to do one of my periodic what next updates. There are so many things to talk about, questions many of you guys have been asking me, like when will we ever see all of the Shmeemobiles together? Got an interesting update on that front. I want to run over a little bit of 2022, the mileage that I've driven across the various cars. It'll probably surprise you quite how much it actually is. I'd like to talk about the plans for 2023, some differences that will be happening here at the Shmuseum, the progress on the office build, in fact right beside me, what's happening with the rear section of the barn, but also to talk about the future arrivals, what will be down the line, when are the various cars I've alluded to so much recently actually going to be right here in the garage. There's a lot to run through, so let's do it. What is next? It's definitely been getting more and more colourful in here. When you start to look around at some of the Shmeemobiles that have arrived during 2022, things have got pretty bright, but I do want to break down a little bit more the exact mileage that I've driven in each car, what the total has been for the year, because it's actually quite a lot. It's a little bit terrifying actually how much these cars do get driven. I know it seems at some points like the cars basically just stay here, but if you look at the total across the whole fleet, it's a big old number. We've got a fair few things to blast through though, but I want to get started, I think, with talking about the main topic here, getting everything together, and how can that happen? You would not believe how often this question gets asked, and I know it's very cliche to say that, but when will we see all of the Shmeemobiles together? And I actually have a bit of an idea for this. Now, the last time that all of the cars that I owned at one single point were all in the same place together, I can tell you specifically, was in a video I uploaded on the 18th of January 2020, and the reason for that is that it was actually the 10th anniversary of the first ever video on the Shmee150 channel. I owned at the time 10 cars, and believe it or not, I know this is ridiculously nerdy to have pulled together, it was also my 10,000th Instagram post. Yes, that managed to happen. Now, since then, cars have been all over the place. I've had cars in the US, the Shelby GT500 in particular. I've had cars in Germany. The GT Black Series was in the Middle East. Now, of course, it's in the US. So logistically, it's very, very complicated. So here at the Shmuseum at the moment, we actually have 21 cars in total. There are 20 inside, one that's outside, including some cars that belong to friends, people that I've worked with, other cars that are just here to be part of it all, to share with you as well. And I love being able to do that. It creates even more, I guess, passion around the automotive world. But to bring all of the cars that I own together is going to be a challenge, but it's a challenge I'd like to do next year. In fact, around early summer perhaps. The GT Black Series will stay in the US for a while. I've got a bit more to come with that. I'll tell you more about that in a moment. But when it does return, how cool would it be to get everything together, lined up on the Benpack auto stackers here in the Shmuseum? It would be mega. But that means I need to plan in advance various different projects, things that will go out for a while. Of course, cars that will head to other places for different events, like the Zenvo is going to be off on some interesting travels in 2023. Of course, it needs to arrive here first, the Amira, and who knows what else. So the plan is to pull it together, but bear with me because it's not going to be easy. Stay tuned for this one. Let's talk about annual mileage for 2022 because it's a big number across the entirety of the fleet. I want to talk as well about the office build and what's happening on that front in the Shmuseum, but I'm standing in front of the Ferrari GTC 4 which, considering the wintry conditions outside, is very much serving daily driver duties. Not necessarily the most sensible thing to do with a light coloured interior, but hey, it's four-wheel drive, winter tyres, absolutely filthy at the moment. It is going to get even more filthy over the next couple of weeks, and that's something that I think is always quite cool to see. It's what these things are for, and hey, I'm not complaining about enjoying a Ferrari V12 to the max. But over the entire year to date, and we still have a couple more weeks, the Shmeemobiles across the fleet have driven 44,000 miles. It will be about 46,000 miles at the end of the year, which is 74,000 kilometers, and that doesn't take into account press cars, loaner cars, other cars that have done lots of miles as well. So you can probably add a fair bit to that number, in the region of another 10,000 miles, 15,000 kilometers perhaps in total. It's a lot of time out on the road creating these videos, sharing this content, but across the entire fleet, you might not necessarily expect which cars have done the most. I'm sure some are going to be very, very obvious straight off. I've got a little cheat list here just to make sure I can share with you the exact numbers. So in miles, the car with which I have done the most, you can probably guess it, the AMG GT Black Series with the tours in the Middle East and also in the US, and a bit of driving in the UK in the meantime. In the middle, it has done a total of 8,700 miles. Next up is the Lusso, with the very big Where's Shmee tour that we did around Europe, down to Italy, in fact, twice, all the way up to Denmark. It's done 6,800 miles. Third up, another you might be able to guess if you think about it, Gumball 3000, the Shelby GT500. That did a total this year of 4,600 miles. Considering it's only done in the region of 100 or 200 in the UK so far, that's not bad going. Next is probably a big surprise. The SF90 Stradale has done also 4,600. Then we've got the Hurricane STO on 3,200. Then we have the SLS Black Series, which I took down to Switzerland and Italy on 2,700 miles. So the interesting thing is that all of those miles, and it's 1,000 on pretty much everything else, 500 on some of them. The Ford GT has actually done about 1,200 miles. All of those numbers are on cars you don't normally do a lot of miles with. I feel incredibly lucky to be in the position to be able to do so, but to try and share that experience with you as best as possible, to tell you more about what these cars are actually like, to go and drive them. So I know it feels sometimes like cars just sit for an extended period. That's normally because I'm waiting for the right event, the right road trip, the right thing to take them out for, but also to savor that experience, to enjoy it to the max. So older cars like the Aston GT8 and the McLaren 675 LT Spider, yes, they don't come out a lot, but they do still do 500 to 1,000 miles a year. I think cars are always best if they've been driven at least on some kind of regular basis. If you leave them and they have a service, and by the next year they have another service and they've done like 10 miles in the meantime, they're probably going to have issues, whether that's seals that have dried out, whether that's electrical gremlins, whatever it might be. These things are like to be driven, especially the newer and more complex cars. It's a whole lot of miles. I'm very aware of that. I spend far too much time in the car, but I absolutely love it. Love sharing these adventures, love sharing these big road trips. Things like driving in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, things like driving coast to coast in the US, or north-south on the Gumball 3000, whatever it might be. I'm not sure if you can hear this. In the background, the SF90 Stradale is making quite a lot of noise. It's just stopped. That's something I've noticed over the time. When the car is plugged in and charging, I think it's probably to do with warming the battery, or at least maybe it's even cooling the battery, whatever it might be. But in a future garage with lots of hybrid cars that all do that, could get a little bit annoying. Not sure about that one yet. I think it's normal. Maybe I need to find out a little bit, but it does it every, I don't know, maybe every couple of hours, spontaneously. Bit random. I'm sure you've already seen it, but the latest temporary addition to the Shmuseum, the full-size, 1-to-1 scale Lego McLaren Senna. This Senna is built entirely from Lego bricks. Which one of us petrol heads, when we were younger, didn't dream about waking up on Christmas Day to build a Lego car? This is the ultimate. You could technically make this with the same coloured bricks as my actual McLaren Senna, so you could have the cerulean blue and the navy blue accents, but it's 470,000 pieces and probably takes 3,000 or 4,000 hours to build. That sounds like a really dangerous path to go down. It would be quite the challenge. It would be very cool, but probably quite extreme to think about. Anyway, this is going to be here just into the new year. They very kindly lent it to me to be able to share with you, to be able to enjoy, to admire, because it's really a cool thing. It's a massive feat that they're able to create these full, exact replicas of the actual cars. It looks amazing, and it's so nice to have it here at the Shmuseum. This is the next thing to talk about, the office build. What exactly are we doing? It has taken a very long time. In fact, before we even moved into the Shmuseum a year and a half ago, I had already planned out loosely what I wanted to do with this space. It has evolved significantly since, but with all of my travels, being away all of the time, it's kind of taken a back seat behind everything else. But it's finally time, as you can see, the construction effectively of the office space, at least the downstairs area of the mezzanine, is underway. There are a lot of complicated things, and definitely on the Shmuseum channel, a lot of armchair experts about construction, not necessarily taking into account every factor, every element, and what we have to do with regulations, legislation, etc., different materials that have to be used. But all of the fireproof board, which is incredibly heavy, by the way, gets mounted to the underside, covers everything up, and this is going to be converted into a few different rooms. So we've got a little reception room at the entrance. This area, if I just come around the timber, was originally going to be a lounge, but I want to kind of use this area probably a bit more like a lounge slash office space for myself. We're going to have the kitchenette, toilets over that away, and then upstairs the games room and some more office space as well. Now all of this is going to take some time, partly because I don't want to just go full on and have a whole team here all day, every day, throughout the week, non-stop, because we wouldn't be able to shoot any videos. We would have all sorts of other things getting in the way. I'm not here every day as well, so can't necessarily answer all of the questions live, which you basically want to be able to do if you want to do it exactly how you have in your mind. So it's going to take a while. We're going to do it in stages. Stage 1 at the moment is to get these downstairs rooms completed. Stage 2 will probably be to do all of the plumbing for the kitchen and the toilets, because that's a little bit more complicated, probably not the most interesting as well, but maybe we'll be sharing more of that on the Shmuseum channel. Then stage 3, we'll move upstairs. Then stage 4, we'll have more of the garage area being done as well, flooring, for example. Stage 5, we'll probably move more over to the storage rooms, sitting behind the museum area. But I'm very much looking forward to having the halo space as well. Remember, this whole area that I'm going to be walking over to right now in here is going to be a halo space, i.e. that's going to be an area with some cool lighting to look really, really nice, with a car sitting center stage that you would actually be able to see through the glass windows, because that whole area is going to have a wonderful view. This is inspiration that I've got from various different places I've been to visit, Iconic Motors, visiting Pablo over in Miami recently, and plenty more, just getting that feel for sitting at a desk, looking out at all of the cars. That's been kind of my dream, to just admire them. Even if you're not driving them, you can still enjoy the cars just by looking at them. It's really quite special. So I want to bring that feel here into the garage. You also know about the extra space behind the back wall. Part 2, if you will, the original idea to put the workshop there. Well, over the last 5 or 6 months now, we've not really done anything with that space. So the idea is not to continue with it at this time. We're going to repurpose the space, and maybe we'll see more of that down the line. But for the time being, we're basically going to keep everything in here, in one single hall, focus on that office build, focus on getting that space up and running, and maybe we see what happens a little bit further down the line. What about the new arrivals here at the Shmuseum? Because a few days ago, when I was packing up the GT Black Series in the United States, dropping it off with Cars USA in California, I mentioned we were going to see 5 arrivals here at the Shmuseum in the coming weeks. So what exactly are they? Well, the first, of course, has been the surprise of the Lego McLaren Senna. What a cool thing to unwrap. The second is due in only a matter of days, a car that I think we're all looking forward to seeing on the channel, the Lotus Emira First Edition. Now, I went to see it a few weeks ago, but there's one little hiccup about taking delivery right now, which is that I ordered the car on Sport Cup 2 tyres, and it's currently snowing outside, which is not exactly a match made in heaven for the delivery of a new sports car. So let's see how this running in mileage is going to go, but expect to see it very, very soon. Number 3 is going to be a very welcome return, something I think we're all looking forward to seeing back here, which is the Formula 1 show car. We took delivery of it a year ago at Christmas. It's been off to TDF to be stripped down, it's been repainted at Godleman's, and it's going to get the livery with Dub Customs of the 1997 championship winning Williams FW19. I can't wait to see it all back together, which should be around Christmas time, because it's the ultimate showpiece for a man cave. To just sit in it and make Formula 1 engine sounds and dream about being Jacques Villeneuve winning the championship that year, it's the coolest thing, even if it's very, very childish. I can't wait to have that back and to see the finished look, so stay tuned for that. Number 4, a car that's never been here, but a car that I know you all would like to see here, and I would too, and that will be the arrival of the Zenvo TSRS. Now, of course, in early September, I took delivery of the car in Denmark from the factory in Prastu, drove it to Copenhagen, trucked it down to Supercar Owners Circle in Croatia, the most fabulous of hypercar tours. After that, it went back to the factory for a shakedown, oil change service, a check over and adjustment of a couple of things. It was actually ready, as I said in my last update, only a couple of weeks later at the end of September. But in early October, in fact right at the beginning of the month, I went on a tour around Europe, then to the US to drive across the country in the GT Black Series, then to the Middle East to go and drive Gumball 3000, then back to the US, and I finally made it home about 2.5 months later. So the car is sitting in Denmark waiting for me to go and get it. It's been ready, well, for 2.5 months, nearly 3 months now. But of course, with closures at Christmas time, I'm not sure if I can get it between Christmas and New Year, so it might have to wait until early in the next year. We shall see how that goes, but I promise it's going to be coming here very soon. Number 5 is something in the works, which if I can pull off, will be a mega surprise and super cool. I can't say too much at this moment in time, other than bear with me on that one. Now, cars further afield, I've talked about the Morgan Super 3, I've talked about the Ferrari 296 GTS, which I'll need to spec very soon as well, and there might be a couple more things to touch on in 2023, but I want to, as I've said a few times, focus a bit more on cars that I really admired when I was a bit younger. Cars like my Clio V6, like a BMW 1M I drove recently, a BMW E46 M3, and I've actually got a short list of probably 12 to 15 cars that I'm keeping my eyes peeled for. So we'll see if anything pops up. But there's been one really big change which interacts with this a lot, which is that when I bought my SLS AMG Black Series nearly 3 years ago now, I bought a car from Germany that I imported to the UK. Now, of course, at the time, the UK was part of the European Union, so that import process was super simple, super easy. You basically just bought it over there, trucked it back, I trailered it back with Turbo Transport Tony, and we just brought it back, went through the registration process, and I think all in all, it probably only cost maybe £2,000 to go through everything, all of the changes that were needed, the IVA, to get it registered to wear a UK plate. Super, super simple. And there are so many cars I constantly look at now that I would love to do the same with. Unfortunately, you can't anymore. So just like importing the GT500 from the US to the UK, you now have to pay additional taxes because the UK is separate from the European Union Customs Union. Brexit happened and it's all very different. So if, let's say, I wanted to buy that same car again, to import it now from Germany to here in the UK to be registered in England would be a very different story because, well, you have duty and you have VAT. So duty is 10%. VAT is on the total plus the shipping plus the duty. So it works out at about 32%, if not more, extra on top of buying the car, whereas before it was pretty negligible. So it's a big change. On that car, it would have been 1% and it's now 32%. So of course, cars like these, while I'm not opposed to left-hand drive in the slightest, unfortunately, for me at least, it's now a no-go to be able to import a car. You can't just send them backwards and forwards without taking into account an extra third on the cost, which tends to eliminate anything. So I do appreciate all of you guys across Europe, whether that's on the continent, in Germany, Netherlands, Belgium, France, Spain, or up in Scandinavia, Switzerland, wherever it might be, offering up interesting cars. But you do have to take into account a hugely different premium that has to be involved because of those taxes. So it has to be really, 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 really cheap, especially with the weak pound, to be able to buy it and bring it here. It makes much more sense to buy a car here. I know it's a little bit in depth probably for this video, but it's certainly a big factor when it comes to buying cars from different countries. So pretty exciting about the cars that are still due to arrive very soon. On to 2023. What are the big plans then? Well, of course, the GT Black Series Tour is going to continue. In fact, I intend to drive it all the way back from the West Coast back to the East, from California across the South, hopefully dodging any dodgy weather in the early part of the year, back over towards Florida. And I'd like to do a second part in the new year as well, heading up the East Coast towards New York before shipping it back home. So that's all of the plans that are in the works on that tour before it will arrive back here, and hopefully can be part of bringing everything all together. But I think I'll be spending even more time over in the US, probably back on the road around Europe. I've not actually been on a Euro tour for probably the longest time in a fair while, considering obviously no longer having a place in Germany as I used to, and all of the other things in the US, in the Middle East, etc. And obviously the weather, just not the greatest weather to get on the road, except I do have a plan in mind with the SF90, a really cool plan. So I'm looking forward to sharing more of that. I don't really know how the Shmuseum is going to evolve by the end of the year, but I suspect it will be quite a different place to what you're looking at now. We'll probably have much more in terms of completion, office, floors, etc. come the end of the year. But of course, that process will all be over on the Shmuseum channel. What I do know is it's going to be exciting as always. So thank you very much for joining me during 2022. The year is going to end with one of the coolest feats that I seriously can't quite believe. In about a week to 10 days, the Shmee150 channel will reach 1 billion views on YouTube, not including any short form videos like on the Shorts channel Shmeebites or over on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, etc. But purely here on the longer videos on YouTube, 1 billion. And I'd like to say a huge thanks in advance for this, because it's actually unreal to think about that as a number. 1 billion views is a whole lot, and it's all thanks to you guys. It's been a lot of work over 13 years in January. It will be with, on average, more than a video per day. More than a video a day on average for 13 years. I love shooting this content, I love cars, and I love sharing it and engaging with all of you guys about it. So thank you very, very much. That's it, I think, though, for now, and I'll see you again very soon. Cheers.